I guess we'll begin as people will start coming in. First of all, I wanted to, thank you for everybody coming on this morning. To skin Muhammad Sion, we should be merit time of returning to Israel, Sion. This is the year where we're yearning for it. And we have to, of course, a special akarat of the SCA for putting all these wonderful programs together throughout the entire day when scheduling different rabbis and educators. We're going to be part. I was very happy to be part of the So today's our topic. We're going to really hopefully get to delve into something that last night when we were sitting down during the keynote and we were reciting the book of Echa. There was a section of the tefillah last night that one of the rabbi usually would announce how many years it would be from the time that the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed until today. So as you know, in the years, there's an argument which year it was, but the Romans unfortunately destroyed the second Beit HaMikdash. The year around 68 CE is what our tradition is. So that means that about 1952 years ago, the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed. But what it says over there is not only that it was a fact that it happened so many years, but we mention that the avonot, the sins that our fathers did and that we also did, have been part of the destruction, which is, the wording is very interesting to note. We are including ourselves as part of the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash. It wasn't a past historical event that occurred, but rather it continues to happen. Even though we do not have a Beit HaMikdash, but the fact that it's not built means that we are also unfortunately responsible for the fact that it's not together. And we're going to discuss, obviously, something very important today. What was the main reason why the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed? Chachamim tried to analyze after the destruction, what was the specific area where the second was destroyed. So we all say, of course, we all know the famous things that we since we were young, the concept of sinat chinam, baseless hatred. What is baseless hatred? When somebody says, just say hatred. When you hate people, that's good enough. But why do we use the word baseless? The word sin'ah means hatred. Hinam means free or baseless. It has no bearing. Because we know that there is an obligation for every Jewish person to love his fellow neighbor. As it says in the Torah, Parashat Kedoshim, ve'ahavta et Hashem Elokei, ve'ahavta le'acha kamocha. You are to love your neighbor as you love yourself. You have a mitzvah when you see your friend, you have a mitzvah to worry about him, to concern yourself about his concern. Not to just say, it's his business, I only care about what's going on in my life, what's going on in his life, he'll deal with it. It says the Torah that you have an obligation to not only worry about yourself, which is obviously foremost, but to also worry about the other person, worry about his well-being, worry about what he owns, what is property, to make sure that he has what is sufficient so that he's able to take care of other people around him. That's why we have the mitzvah of tzedakah, of giving charity, because tzedakah ensures it's not just an option, it's a nice thing to do, it's an obligation upon us to ensure that we're able to help the other person so that he could live properly. And when he lives properly, we could also live properly. Think about it, the whole entire world economy now, we see what's going on in the United States. When one company closes, that affects employees. When employees are not working, what ends up happening is that they don't shop as much anymore. It affects other people, affects their well-being. So for us, for our economy to be a very strong economy, everybody not only has to be working, but happy to be working and enjoying what they're doing. When we're all caring about each other and making sure that everybody's able to do what they need to do, then we're in good standing. And unfortunately, when a person hates another person, that begins the process of dividing yourself and saying, you're not part of my clan, and I don't have to be concerned about you. I don't have to be worried about you. I'm only worried about myself. If I love you, I worry about you. But if I hate you, I don't care about you. The Torah says, ve'ahavta le'acha kamocha. We have an obligation to love. And we're going to see today an interesting story. As we know, we are only supposed to read sections on the Tish'a BeAb that have to do with the sadness and, of course, to remember the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash. We don't usually study Talmud, Gemara, but there are sections in the Gemara that we are allowed to study that brings a person to either Teshuvah or brings a person to realize what happened. Why was it? What was Sinat Chinam? Why was it so bad that it caused destruction of Beit HaMikdash? So I'm going to share my screen with you just to show you some different sources in regards to the whole inyan of what Sinat Chinam is. Okay, just a point also, by the way, it says in Masechet Yuma, where the Hachamim tried to define how the first Beit HaMikdash was destroyed and the second. Well, look what it says here. Ava Mikdash Sheni, the second Beit HaMikdash, Shayu Oskim BaTorah. People during that time were studying Torah. U'mitzvot, they were doing different acts of mitzvot. They were religious people. Gimilut Chasadim, they were doing acts of kindness. Bibnei Maharev, says the Gemara, why was it destroyed? Bibnei Shaitaz Bo Sinat Chinam, because there was sinat, hatred between fellow men, believe it or not. Lelamedcha, to teach us. Sheshikula Sinat Chinam keneged shalosh avrot, to show us that baseless hatred, when you have no reason to hate someone, it goes against the three avir. It's as if equal, like the three most, they call the cardinal sins, the sins that you're supposed to give up your life for. What are they? Avodah zarah, idolatry. Imagine the comparison of sinat chem, hatred, is on the same plateau as idolatry, which we never imagine in millions of years would we ever even consider it. Giloy arayot, incestuous relationships, and shfichut damim, and murder. Those three are put together on the same balance as sinat chinam. It's very hard to understand that, how a hatred could be on on those levels. But as we're going to see in class today, we're going to be able to really understand deep down inside what sinat chinam could do. How much damage could sinat chinam cause? Okay, so we continue in our class. Okay. And just before we continue the story, I want to just show you an interesting, our topic was today, I don't really want to invite him over. It happens a lot, unfortunately. People think that we have to include everybody. And there's times when people don't want to include because for whatever reason they have. So we have to be very careful on what grounds that is. I'm going to be learning a story today called Kamsan Bar Kamsa that talk about the whole inyan of what it was like. Okay, so I'm just going to show you just something very interesting. People, many of us, when we have an opportunity to bond with people, we should always obviously take it. Now, if you have an issue with a friend, and we're going to talk about it today, a story, where you don't want to talk to your friend. You were friends, you grew up with him, you had a good relationship with him, and all of a sudden things changed. Things didn't go so well. You didn't keep in touch as much. You didn't really have a solid, strong connection. Maybe he wasn't inviting you to many things that was going on in his life, whether they were birthday parties, whether they go to a baseball game together, whether to hang out. And now you start to seem like, wait, maybe he's really not my friend. And you start to have thoughts about, hey, maybe should I really consider continuing my relationship or just not talk to him at all? Well, we're going to see that there's a story that happened many years ago, right before the destruction of the second Beit HaMikdash, which really, in a way, clearly pointed out how serious sinat chinam could be. Okay, so what was the story? So the story was as follows. I'm just going to share my screen. And I'm sort of like summarize it for you because it's a little bit of a long story. So the Gemara Masechet Gitin Daf Nun He Amud Bet. There it discusses the reasoning for how the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed and the events that were going on at the time. So Rabbi Yohanan was a person with a Hachamim who lived in Eretz Israel post Beit HaMikdash, and he made a very interesting interpretation in a pasuk in Mishleh. Ashrei Adam mifahid tamid u'makshir libo yipol bara'ah. It says in the book of Mishleh, fortunate is the man that's always nervous, meaning he should always be very comfortable. He should realize everything could go well, but there's times that things are going to be cyclical where they're not going to go so well. No, that's from Hashem, obviously. So a person who psychologically knows that things may happen and he's prepared for it, he's fortunate. However, u'makshir libo yipol bara'ah. But somebody that has a hard heart, stiff heart, will fall in evil. We're going to talk about who this person was today. And continues the Gemara and says the following after the statement, this beautiful in Dirasha. It says that Bar Kamsa Haruv Yerushalayim. It was on Kamsa and Bar Kamsa that the whole city of Yerushalayim was destroyed. What happened? Okay, so there was a story of a rich man who was living in Yerushalayim, and doesn't say who his name was in the Gemara, but he had a friend by the name of Kamsa. Kamsa was his very good friend, and they were also sort of, I guess, wealthy people living together. And there was another person that the rich man did not like. His name was Bar Kamsa. Interesting how the name are similar to each other. Okay, so Kamsa, the rich man himself, wanted to have a special hagiga, an enjoyment banquet, a feast, to invite his friends over. I guess he was in a very happy mood, and he wanted people to come. So basically, he sent invitations out. He had, usually back then that they used to do, would have mail, but they used to have actually people that walked around the city, and they would come to your door and invite you. By the way, it happens to be that so-and-so is getting married. We're inviting you tomorrow evening for the party. So this man went around, and he wanted to make sure that Kamsa would be there. So he told him to go and invite Kamsa. The messenger went and he's walking around doing his invitations, and he happened to see a Hawam and it said on the name Bar Kamsa. So he thought that was the right person. So he made an invitation to Bar Kamsa. Bar Kamsa was completely shocked. Why is he inviting me to this party? He hates me. He can't stand me. I don't like him either. There's no reason why he's inviting me. It doesn't make sense. But he realized, okay, maybe he wants to make up, to be part of this group and class of people he wanted to be part of. He said, okay, maybe he had second thoughts, and maybe he really does want to invite me over. Great. I'm very excited to go. So what happened was he ended up going to the party, dressed up. He had tens, and he's sitting down, and he's enjoying his banquet. And happens the host of the party is now walking around to see his guests, and it happens to be that as he's walking around, he's looking for Kamsa. He doesn't see him. Where is my good friend who I invited? How come he didn't come to the party? He went to, of course, his messenger, said, where is he? He said, well, I invited him, and guess what happened? They look on the side, and he sees somebody he doesn't like. He sees Bar Kamsa. Bar Kamsa crashed my party. He attended. How could he? I can't stand him. I don't like talking to him at all. Why is he here? So now, when somebody's at a party and you accidentally came, or for whatever reason, there's a way to handle things. You're not happy about somebody who's at your party. You're going to go make an embarrassing public display because he came to your party without any invitation? So what happened was, I guess he was so angry. It's imagine with the cause, the anger in this host. He walks up to Bar Kamsa and he says, what are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here. So Bar Kamsa said, well, I guess maybe you made a mistake, but I was invited here. Somebody came to my house and invited me to your party. Oh, that was a mistake. Okay. So his response is, listen, if you want, I'm already started eating. Let me just finish what I'm doing. And then after I'll go. So I don't want to make it an embarrassment and leaving early, because somebody leaves a party at the time. A person that leaves a party early, that's like embarrassing. Where are you going? You're here. And people start talking. So let me sit and finish the party. I won't say anything. I'll be quiet and everything will be fine. The host was still upset and angry. And because of his anger, he said to him, no way. You have to go now. Bar Kamsa pleaded and said, okay, listen, if you want, I'll pay for my su'udah, what you put on the table for me, I'll put it out of my pocket, just don't bother me. And again, he refused. He said, no way, you have to leave. Bar Kamsa offered, says the Gemara, I'll pay for half the entire banquet here, just so I could sit and not be embarrassed. And of course, the host, still in his deep anger, of course, his hardened heart, as I mentioned before, Makshe Libo, Yipol Bara'a, he said, no. Okay, I'll pay the entire feast. I'll pay the entire occasion that you're doing here. This will be on me. Just don't tell me to go home, please. And of course, it was like almost embarrassing that all of a sudden the host of the party grabbed Bar Kamsa's arm and dragged him out of the party in front of a whole spectacle of people. It was a very embarrassing moment. Even Gemara points out that there were hachamim, there were rabbis, because at the time he was one of the well-known people in the community, and he usually had rabbinic people with him. They were there watching, and nobody said anything. They kept quiet. This man, Bar Kamsa, now walked out, embarrassed. You can imagine the feeling he was going through. Now that he became a public spectacle and people are now talking about him, and he became now the word on the street. He right away wanted, as when somebody gets angry, what happens? They want to take revenge. They want to get back. So what ended up happening now? Bar Kamsa now is in the street, and he's thinking, how am I going to get back at this man? And I think also he might have had his, it doesn't really clearly say it, but how am I going to get back at these rabbis too, who are not even doing anything? When they saw something wrong, and these are the people that are supposed to say something when something is going wrong. Where are they? Why don't I see any response from them? I'm going to take revenge, which the Torah doesn't forbid, but this is what happens. When a person with anger, one thing leads to another. So he ended up deciding, I'm going to go to the Roman government and I'm going to make up a story to them. And the story is going to basically be, my statement to them is that the Jewish people are rebelling against you. So he went then, he was able to get a meeting with the Caesar at the time. And he met with them. And he said, I have a very, very important message I want to share with you. And this you need is, the Roman government at the time was controlling Israel. Even though the Jewish people were in a way a little bit safe under the Roman elm, but still, we don't want to, of course, one thing, we don't want to start trouble with the government whatsoever. And there's a halakha, as you know, Moser is someone who gives over information to the government, which you're not allowed to do, that could, of course, hurt and disrupt the Jewish harmony. And this is what this man now acted as. He became Bar Kamsa a Moser. He told the Caesar, the Jewish people are trying to rebel against you. So the Caesar, of course, questioned, what? How could that be? There's no way that's happening. They've been good all this time. How could they decide to rebel? Where do you see proof? So Bar Kamsa said, I have an idea for you. Why don't you offer an animal that's going to be brought to the Beit HaMikdash, because at the time the Beit HaMikdash was around, and if they take your offering, that means they've accepted you. But if they reject your offering, you could clearly see they're beginning the stages of rebelling against you. That's going to be the litmus test. Okay? The Caesar agreed and said, okay, you're going to handle it. I'll give you a very nice cow. You're going to go and bring it to the Beit HaMikdash, and let's see what the Jewish people do at that time. So Bar Kamsa took the animal, gladly, was happy to take this mission, and he decided to put what's called a mum, which is a blemish, something that won't be so noticeable in an area by, they say, the lips. It's interesting, by the way, that the blemish was placed on the lips of the animal. Think about it. It has obviously a good, easy connotation, is that what really caused all these problems with speech, talking bad about another person. And look how now this mum, this blemish is going to be placed on this animal. According to halakha, a person now, you're not allowed to bring the animal to the Beit HaMikdash. Okay, so he brought it. The Hachamim now were checking the animal at the Beit HaMikdash. They realized, wait a second, there's a mum, there's a blemish on the lips of the animal. We cannot bring it. We cannot sacrifice it. They were about, but wait a second. Some rabbis argued and said, we have to, because we don't want to cause problems with the government. This is from the emperor. We can't start issues with that. But there was a rabbi, Rabbi Markolis, who said, if we do it, then what will happen? People will make a mistake and think that you're allowed to bring animals that have blemishes, and that's 100% fine. So then some rabbis said, maybe we should kill this Bar Kamsa. But then people, Markolis argued and said, if we do that, we're going to have the same problem, because people may think that anybody that brings a blemished animal should be killed. So they agreed with him at the end of the day, the rabbis, and they said, we're not going to accept the animal. Because they didn't accept the animal, the emperor was convinced that the Jewish people were rebelling against him. And that began the stage of ordering his army to go into Jerusalem and to destroy the Beit HaMikdash. Imagine one word of hatred building itself up, getting to the point, Chas Shalom, it took one family to go and one person to go and destroy the Beit HaMikdash because of Sinat Chinam. So we see clearly how serious this is. It's not something that an invitation. All he had to do was stay with him and say, it's okay, it's fine, even if he didn't like him, but at least to not embarrass him. And the embarrassment is where it became the litmus point for why Beit HaMikdash Sheni was destroyed. What do we do now to go forward? Because we live in this time too, where people disagree with each other to the point where they hate each other or may not talk to each other. So our goal, of course, as every individual do, is the mitzvah. Love your neighbors, love yourself. Start to worry, start to concern about yourself with others. If it's even your brother, your family, your cousins, your friends, work on building up a beautiful circle, we call of influence, where I want to make sure that my family, my friends are good, at peace with us, and that we're doing what we need to do that's right. Okay, I have to, sorry, I would have to end the session because there's a speaker coming in. I wanted to thank everybody for attending this morning. We should merit the building of Yerushalayim, God willing, with our ahava. It starts with our hearts. Those are the building blocks. That's what's going to really make us closer. Boys, thank you for coming on this morning. It was great to see you. And have an easy and musical fest, everyone. Thank you.